Kapenga M is a farming trust covering 1,858 hectares on Tuhorangi land in the Bay of Plenty. The land sustains dairy, sheep, beef and deer operations, as well as 400 hectares of forest. The dairy farm is the 2012 holder of the Ahuwhenua Trophy BNZ Māori Excellence in Farming Award.
We're milking on about 330 effective hectares here, out of a total area of about 570 for the dairy platform. We're wintering 1,020 cows and peak milking just under 1,000. Expected production this year is somewhere between 350 and 370,000 kilos of milk solids. That's a little bit down on our record production last year of 395,000. You can see the contour is not exactly flat everywhere. It's been a combination of good cows with good pasture, a lot of investment in farm infrastructure and a really good share milker. We're on pretty free draining pumice soils. We've had a lot of investment in soil fertility over the years, so we can grow good grass provided we get regular rainfall. We can winter cows pretty effectively here because of the pumice. We don't get too muddy, so we do get pretty good pasture utilisation for most of the year. Location-wise, the farm's pretty good. We're only 20 minutes out of Rotorua, so in terms of getting good staff, attracting good people to the business, we find that relatively easy. Big drawback for this farm is the change in altitude. So we have about a 70-metre difference between the highest point of the farm and the lowest point of the farm. And the big factor also is that walking distance. So furthest paddock from the shed is about 3 kilometres, and we'll be asking one herd to probably do a walk of, at least one walk of 2.5 k's in one of their milkings every day. The trustees here have set a very clear vision of where they see their business going, which is pretty well articulated through to me and the managers and the share milkers who work here. The trust has an intergenerational investment focus, so when we make investment decisions, we make them for the long term. That allows us to make sensible decisions that aren't reactive in relation to things like payouts or climate. And I guess that provides a lot of security for our share milkers and our staff, and they understand that we have a long-term focus and that we're prepared to put the effort and investment into the business for a longer-term view. We run all the businesses here all totally autonomously. Each business unit here, and there are 3 individual farming business units within Kapenga M at this location. We integrate them where we can, but it's always done in a market-based arm's-length transaction. So we have 500 of our dairy cows winter on our sheep and beef unit, which is over those hills over there. That's done at commercial rates, and effectively we give our business the first option at that wintering. If that didn't work, we'd go to the market. Similarly, we have a pretty profitable lease bull business where there's an opportunity to lease bulls for tailing up if we choose to. But by and large, we extract value out of the wider business in terms of purchasing power, being able to spread some fixed costs. But by and large, they're separate business units and accountable as such. These cows are predominantly Frisian cross. When Edwin first came here, the previous share milker had a fairly large Jersey herd, and he brought a large Frisian component, and he's been mainly crossbreeding back with Frisian since then. BW, the herd, is about 86, and PW in the low 100s, so pretty good herd, capable of pretty large levels of pasture consumption and high levels of milk solids production to go with it. We're growing over on good pasture like this, good ryegrass white clover pasture. On some of the less flash parts of the farm, we probably have a bit more brown top in the sward, but pretty high levels of Olsen P mean that we do actually promote pretty good ryegrass growth even in those areas, along with pretty good pasture management. In terms of quantity, this farm would typically only produce about 10 to 11 tonnes of dry matter per hectare per year. Last year was an exception. We probably grew closer to 12.5 before nitrogen use, so that explains part of the big lift in production. We're using about 130 to 140 kilograms per N per hectare per year on average over the whole farm, which probably means on areas like this they're getting close to 180, and on the hills they're only getting about 70 kilos. The average paddock size here is probably somewhere around about 3.2 hectares. We have somewhere around 100 paddocks on the farm. We have a lot of KPIs that we monitor on behalf of the owners and measure our performance against. And just in the last few years, we have been moving to actually link in financial and environmentally linked indicators. So, for example, we now report on things like EBIT per kilogram of nitrogen leached. We are also reporting on our expected carbon liability on an annual basis. and mainly with a view that those are the things that are going to become the limiting resources for our business. Obviously, traditionally things like hectares and cows limited production, but going forward it's going to be around some of those new resources that we're having to grapple with, like the ability to lose nitrate to waterways and emit carbon. We're what they call a System 3 farm, so that means that we have only about 20% of our feed coming in off the system off farm. We bring in as much as 500 tonne dry matter of imported feed a year, so that's up to 200 tonnes of maize silage and 300 tonnes of PKE or dry distiller grain. We are trying to manage the farm in such a way that we can maximise productivity from the grass we're growing here rather than rely on imported feed sources. If the payout went through the roof, then we might be able to reevaluate that, but generally speaking 500 kilos a cow maximum. 2 years ago we built a large concrete feed pad where we can stand 500 cows or half the herd on any one time. So generally speaking we'll feed those cows in 2 herds during the day, 1 herd in the morning, 1 herd in the afternoon, and they can quite happily stand in there and consume up to 6 to 7 kilos of dry matter. We're milking through a 50 bale rotor-flow rotary cow shed, so it's a fully concrete cow shed and it floats on a reservoir of water rather than having a standard sort of bearing mechanism. I report to the board and the share milker generally reports through me to the board. Edwin is here with his wife Marion and they employ 3 other full-time employees, and we have a half labour unit if you like in terms of just relief during calving and calf rearing and that kind of stuff. We won the Ahuwhenua Trophy for excellence in Māori dairy farming for 2012. It's a real feather in the cap for the people who work here and for the people that govern this business, that they had a business that we could simply bring people to and let them have a look at it, expose it for all its warts and all that kind of stuff, and still come out on top. I think it speaks volumes for the foresight of the trustees and the quality of the management here.
Up till last year there was over $1 million worth of grants and dividends that had been distributed through Kapenga. Just over 900 owners. The whole whakaaro, or the thinking of the original trustees, was this was a food bowl for Tūhorangi. We still want to keep that particular aim and use of the land to the forefront of our thinking as we move forward. And the diversification of the land use was more about extending the opportunities to provide back to the beneficial owners. One of our key strategic outcomes was for us to ensure the sustainability of the environment, or maybe even self-preservation as a trust as well. If that environment was sustainable, then our production of that environment would probably be a lot better and consistent, and therefore the return to our people would be the same.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.